All right, y'all. Good morning. This is Coffee and Chat with Rev Bruce. I'm here with Kevin Collins, one of my good friends, former students, doing his thing, helping out students and starting up with some maker clubs as well, maker spaces as well as esports clubs with some college students. And so here we are talking about something we both feel near and dear to, comic books, particularly black superheroes. So welcome, Kevin. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good. Yes, now it's nice to be called an old friend. To me, I still look at you, and I will always look at you as my mentor because you are a man that's always been teaching me, and you never stopped teaching me from a kid to the man that I am now. So I appreciate that. Friend feels equal. Mentor, you still my mentor.
Well, as they used to say in the other place where our people came from, you have arrived. You have arrived, and so you are welcome to be amongst the elders. Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
So this is what we're talking about, man. I mean, this is pretty in line with what we've been talking about for Black History Month here on this channel and Black education. The other week we talked about Black history as a focus on STEM, but really getting into this whole thing about Black superheroes, Black superheroes. And Kevin, I want to ask you, as a young man, what what's your earliest memory of a Black superhero?
My earliest memory of a black superhero. Uh, I would have to say it was actually seeing. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was when Shaquille O'Neal actually played a superhero, and he had the hammer and the mask.
Oh man, yes,
Yeah, yeah. And then from there, that was like my first memory. And then from there, that's when I kind of started diving in. I was like, it was cool, but it wasn't necessarily like what I wanted to see. So I started looking for more. And then that's when I discovered like Meteor Man. That's when I
mm-hmm.
found out about like Spawn. And then I found out about Black Panther, of course, which is like the big like everybody's into right now. But then I just remember Saturday mornings watching Static Shock. Like Static Shock was
Oh yeah,
probably the most relatable black superhero experience I had because it was about a geeky black guy from the hood, like just trying to make it in life and stuff like that. But at the same time, he has this like secret gift that people just don't understand, and it's kind of like the same thing as being a nerd from the hood. Like we have this special gift that not everybody gets necessarily, but it's like we just want to see good happen for the people around us and in the place that we come from. So it was really dope comic book and like a cartoon series to grow up on,
yeah,
especially.
yeah, and that says a lot about the whole misunderstanding and perception of different things we might get into as far as our interest, in a culture that, you're being white or anything like that, And so I know as a reader and then as a comic book reader, it's like, why are you reading that? Well, it's just like interesting. For me, my earliest recollection of a black superhero would have to be more on the comedic side with the Brown Hornet as part of the Cosby Kids that Bill Cosby would put on every Saturday with Fat Albert. And the Brown Hornet would be like this mini segment, long predating The Simpsons and, you know, the show when the Simpsons came on as like a mini segment, just like Mr. Bill came on as a mini segment for SNL. Long predating that, the Brown Hornet was
Brown
this
Hornet.
comedy superhero that Bill Cosby came up with. And so that was like, okay, here's this image of blackness of someone trying to be a superhero. And then I got into other superheroes. I mean, with a name like Bruce, I was raised on Bruce Wayne and Bruce Banner, right?
I'm about
So
to
those
say, yeah.
that's you talk about in general, but my first black superhero image was the Brown Hornet for me. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm looking at him now. This is I've never seen this before. This is
yeah,
definitely
it's
something I'm
very
looking
very
into.
downplayed, very and from the Brown Hornet spun out Rickety Rocket, which was the other cartoon that was part of the Cosby Kids, and
I
so
might have to pull this out as a cosplay or something.
yeah, you got to check that out. You got to check that out. Definitely retro. And so, who is your favorite black superhero and why?
My favorite black superhero. Um, hmm, that's a tough one because I got a lot of them, and for me, the thing about it, like as far as like superheroes, we'd have to get into like specific like comic book universe, and then go from there and break it down by like which superhero and stuff. But so if we had to pick, we'll start with like the DC universe. Like I said, is probably my favorite, but I definitely like Black Lightning.
Hmm.
He was he was actually pretty cool. Like that was like that I really like the new series that they came out with. But as a kid, I for me it was like kind of seeing like what I thought Virgil would turn out to be. So it was seeing that transition. But I'll say this: um, I can't really say that I've never. The reason why I can't say I've ever had a favorite superhero is because all of my superheroes kind of end up having the same exact ability. Like they control lightning. Like almost all of them control lightning. So it's kind of like, I can't really say I have a specific hero as it is that I have a specific type of power that I like. I like power up characters and things like Storm. Yeah,
Yeah.
she been doing the thing. Like she was the first black woman that I ever saw super powered. Period.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know that black folks outside of Storm, or at least how do I put this? Like Storm was like the first like canon like she felt like a main character, like she had a life and things like that I learned about. Like that was when I first realized that like characters had backstories. Like for me, Storm was the character that like I saw her in the X-Men. She was a dope one. She could do all these amazing things. But when they started talking about how like she came from Africa and how like the people like worshipped her like a god and all these other stuff, I was like, wait, they have
Yeah.
deeper stories besides like what they're doing and like in their current like arc of their life. And then that's what made me dive more into other superheroes and like what else does everybody else have going on, like not just like what they put out on the comic books, but actually like what the authors are writing in their universe about what they got going on. And that's what really got me into like more learning more about comic book universes.
Yeah. And she was royalty, right?
If I'm not
And
mistaken, yeah, like yeah, she was
she
a
was she was
daughter of a chief.
royalty. Yeah. And then you put into
Her marrying Black
there,
Panther.
there's like if you go deep enough, you can go into her relationship and supposedly if you go deep enough into the X-Men, 'cause I go all the way back to the Uncanny X-Men when it was, very raw before they added a lot of characters. You start getting into the development of the next generation of X-Men that also end up with some of the children of mutants. Because there again, the mutants are, these outsiders, they're ostracized, they're treated a certain way, laws are made to keep them in line. And so, very, very, very good, to see them, um, come together, right? And you can see this next generation of X-Men coming out, dealing with the mutant protest and all this fighting,
Yeah,
and you won't have to dig deep or go that far to see the connections between Professor X, Storm, and all these other individuals. And so look into it later, and you'll see um, that the next generation is pretty much um, mutant infusion, for X-Men. But for me, I have to say mine was an anti-hero, and that would be Spawn. And when I saw pretty much like you're saying, the backstory of Spawn and like, man, catching this guy, it Spawn is pretty much like Faust, the opera and
Yeah,
legend of Faust with the deal with the devil, and it adds this other universal soldier element to it. Like, okay, not only am I gonna, you know, make a deal with you and save your life to take your soul, but I'm going to make sure that I use your skills to, you know, work work you and work you to the end to where now you're locked in with me as a servant. And so for me, Spawn was this almost Shakespearean tragic hero, where
mm,
he wanted something that would be a good end, but his methods and means led to, just a whole bunch of demise for him. And so for me, I really got into Spawn and his story and what that meant. And so that took me to a different place as a comic book reader, you know?
yeah. Like that was Spawn for me was it embodied the quote, "The road to hell is paved with good intention."
Yeah.
Because it's something that speaks to a lot of different comic book characters and just in general about not so much the comic book life but the life that we live in the world we live in. Like we try so hard to do good, and sometimes it feels almost like a supernatural force is holding you back, and you have to like go about it in other methods to overcome the supernatural force. And where you have like some characters like Spawn which give into the darkness in order to use it to fight against it, you have like the opposite heroes, like honestly, if I had to say, Green Lantern, John Stewart.
Mm,
To go back to that question earlier about favorite superheroes, I think it was more like I was a little like overwhelmed by the idea of like how many different superheroes I liked. But like I said, it went back to the concept of like the energy. That's what I love about black superheroes. And most of the black superheroes, their powers are based in their energy. And John Stewart was one of those special ones because of the fact that the Green Lantern ability itself, as it, like most people know, like it's a part of the emotional spectrum. And
hmm
so the fact that he was one of the strongest lanterns due to his sheer power of will, it made me appreciate like the artistry and those writers that are able to actually like give life to our experiences in a way that's fantastic. I don't know if I'm even using the right word or adjective to describe how I feel about her, like what they're doing. But like take John Stewart. He is a black man from America. To survive in America, you have to have like as a black man, you have to have a resounding will to really like push forward, like despite everything going on, from like the killing to the disrespect to like the like trying to keep our families together. These things like that takes sheer willpower not to break. And to know that they created a black superhero whose superpower is the power of will, for me was like, that's my guy, yo. Like that's, if I have to think about it like the way he thinks about it, every challenge is an opportunity for me to use my will to construct something that's going to get me
hmm
through this challenge.
Yeah, there's been
Sorry, I had to
raging
backtrack
debate.
that.
No, there's been raging debate about the whole Green Lantern depiction of in live action. Why did we start with the other Green Lantern and then introduce these diverse Green Lanterns as, like, oh, those are also Green Lanterns, but this is the main guy, as opposed to starting with John Stewart and really telling the story as it's depicted in the comic books. That's personally that's my problem with most live action um, depictions of comic books. And I can say this honestly before we get into the next segment, which is about DC or Marvel. I shake my head every time I see DC come out with something that partially matches with what's the authentic story just for the screen. And I'm like, man, why
Yeah,
didn't you just tell the, if you told the real thing and stuck with the real story, how many more fans would you actually have that would be like, okay, I'm dedicated, I can stick with this. But I mean, it's like, what do you mean? What some of these storylines, I'm like, is this real? Did y'all really add that or
that like yeah, the
plug that person
cinematic
in?
universe. I think the thing about though is in order for us to be able to enjoy this, like we have to understand that like the cinematic universe is just gonna have to be its own like universe in itself for all comic books. Like no matter what comic book you like you watch, like just know that the movie universe is always going to be its own separate thing. So it's more like we have to really take it for the entertainment value and not for the canonical purpose of of comic book and storytelling and things like that. Like they're really just there because the general audience wants to be
Yeah,
entertained by this, but the comic book readers and like the true hero enthusiasts, they're gonna have to get those in those niche places where you can find the canon. It's kind of like the Bible. Like you have a bunch of stories that people make movies about. They're kind of based loosely on the Bible, but it's never going to be the Bible. It's never going to be
yeah,
learning the actual script from the source as opposed to their derivatives and stuff. So it's kind of like enjoy it, but you have to know where to find the holy books.
yeah. It's at the end of the day, it's Hollywood, so
Yeah.
they do what they do with what they get, and so that's my next question. Like for you, which do you see as a more diverse offering of characters, DC or Marvel?
That's a tough one, but if I'm just gonna be blatant, I would have to say Marvel's gonna have the most diverse in terms of superheroes, but DC definitely has the strongest consistency. I feel like in storytelling. Like Marvel stories are really all over the place, but
Mm-hmm.
like DC, they have pretty consistent canon across every single like story point. Like the Flashpoint lines up with the different stories that go into like Superman and Batman and things like that. And so even though it's Flash's story, it still does move along the story within the Batman and the Superman universes and stuff, and that's consistent. Whereas like something happened in Marvel and they completely wiped it from canon because of something with a time warp or jumping. It's weird. Like they have weird loopholes that they always use to get characters out of things. Where DC is very limited on how many they use. But back to the sake of diversity, Marvel just does really good with like highlighting the uniqueness of characters and making them more colorful. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing about Marvel is the fact that like Marvel comic books were created to tell and build colorful worlds, whereas DC was more dark and gritty. So it's more like detective comic books. So you're not
Mm-hmm.
really looking to get these flashy, colorful people and learn about everything they got going on. You want to know, what they have to deal with what's going on, and kind of dive into the story. So like you don't get like Batman slice of life, but you'll have
No.
like a random like Clark Kent. I mean not Clark Kent, but you'll have like Hank Pym taking his daughter out for ice cream or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's like that type of stuff you don't really get with DC. And so like DC, I like it because those characters are very strong. Like I said, Green Lantern. The idea of creating a superhero series and not just the one Green Lantern, but the whole Lantern spectrum based off of the emotional spectrum and the light spectrum. That's like deep thinking type stuff. Like that is like, like I could really use this to tell a story, or I could use this to teach a lesson. Where Marvel tells really good stories.
Yeah, I have to say for me, I am I'm down with Marvel as far as like you said, the continuity, particularly like I mentioned before, what they do with the mutants, right? DC has been, DC has been one of the things I grew up on mainly, along with, um, you know, little spatterings of Marvel characters, particularly Spider-Man, and we're talking about Captain America, Iron Man. Not so much. Iron Man was hard to get into as a comic when I was younger. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the rest of it, as far as diversity, I have to give um, Marvel credit, the whole Marvel comic universe, as well as part of the cinematic universe for having a greater diversity. I just think sometimes, like you said, the storylines don't match up. The characters begin to sometimes the characters appear to be like more spotlighted than the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it becomes where, all right, where is this thing going? Right. And one of my problems with DC is that sometimes, go back to when I was a kid, I used to watch Justice League all the time, right? As far as, you know, Saturday mornings. And all of a sudden you've got a Native American character, you've got these other characters you don't know necessarily what ethnicity they are or what backstory they have, and or what are they, right? And then you got you throw in a black character, and I'm like, are they doing it just to be adding someone?
Exactly. Like
Just
they
to some
focus so
form of
much on the story.
tokenism. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't need tune tokenism. So just I can live with the fact that based upon how it's created and how it's produced and who's creating it, that they don't have someone in there who knows it from that perspective, right? And
Yeah.
so that's part of the problem I have. When we look at certain characters, right? When they
Yep.
took
I mean,
Valken, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say like on that tip, as far as like the writers and things like that. That's exactly why like sometimes it's hard to say who my favorite superhero is, because when you think about like your favorite, or like you think about the things that make them unique to you to make you like them and things. And where I say that like I love about our black superheroes is also the same like kind of like stereotype that I see with our superheroes. They're all power based heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Like the writers lack a diversity in creating like different array of abilities for African American heroes was definitely something that was stifled over the years, and you could see it in the writing. Like I said, I looked at Virgil Hawkins becoming Black Lightning, not really realizing that not they're separate people, but they're two black
Yeah,
men with the same color scheme that have the same superpower.
I mean
And
that's pretty much the Dave Chappelle argument of, are you laughing with me or laughing at me?
mm-hmm,
Am I part of the writing team and we're doing this together, or am I just tap dancing for the show?
comedic muse,
You
yeah,
know,
and
and that
that's
makes
that's something
me,
that's always been tough.
yeah, and that makes me ask this question. What do you think when I say Wakanda forever?
Uh, when I sit here Wakanda Forever, I get mixed emotions. I have the first emotion is always going to be pride, because that was such an amazing build up and hype for a black comic fandom that like I really loved everybody's support.
Mm-hmm.
But then the second emotion that jumps in is bandwagon, because of the fact that like you have a lot of people that really jumped on this franchise because it was a popular franchise, and
Mm-hmm.
not really because of the fact that they tried to dive into black superheroism and really try to understand like what did it take to get Black Panther to the big screen. Because then when you get into that
Yeah.
conversation, then you get into the conversation about how we have as a community where we push our ideas of creativity and what we see as acceptable for our ideas of creativity. Because for a long time, like comic book nerds and things like that were not accepted into mainstream society.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're not accepted into mainstream society, anybody that's already not accepted into mainstream is then given another chip on their shoulder if they just so happen to be a part of another out crowd. So being a black nerd in a time when people were not feeling nerds and people don't feel black folks, like you're on a double on, like you're catching it from both sides. So when Black
Mm-hmm.
Panther came out, you found this like sense of like unity within our community where we finally allowed black creatives, black tech nerds, like the hood, like we allow all of these people to come together and say, okay, we can be a people for once on something that doesn't revolve solely around athleticism or music production, which are the
Mm-hmm.
two main streams of like entertainment that we provide the most of here, especially in America. So it's
But it
like
was still
it's mixed
entertainment.
reviews. Yeah.
And
And
at the end
so
of the day, it's still entertainment.
yeah, and so we still we end up back in the realm of entertainment. So that's why it's like
Yeah.
it's a pride because of the fact, like I said, it's the black nerds, and we're finally like getting on stage and people are looking at us. But at the same time, it's like where y'all been for this black struggle? Because now y'all are sitting here and entertaining this, but like how much did it take to get here? And if we're gonna be here, where are we going after this? Like if we're saying Wakanda forever, does Wakanda forever mean that we are now striving for this Wakanda like future as a community? Because like we are storytellers, and that's something that goes all the way back to like hearing the stories about the African guy Anansi, and our ability of storytelling and how we pass down our heritage through storytelling. And so it's when I hear Wakanda Forever, I feel in my heart that that means we're moving towards an Afro technologically advanced society. I hear we're going to let people be more creative. We're going to expand our idea or our concept of what black is because at the end of the day, we're all Wakanda forever.
Yeah, I have trouble with it. Just the other day, I had an encounter where I'm just walking through Target, and it's so removed from the comics that now even the toys, as I'm coming down the aisle and I look, the toys are not Black Panther, they're Wakanda Forever toy. You know what I'm saying? That whole let's run with the hashtag, let's run with the tagline, let's run with the theme. You know, the whole idea of, even the commercialism when I'm watching TV and they have, the black business owner and the student shopping, the child shopping, and they find the beads and it's like support black business, Wakanda forever. It's like, well, man, we what threw me off was when we had this surge of kente cloth and dashikis and all this stuff and kufis of folks going to see this movie as if, it was Roots or something, right?
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with somebody and said, it's a trip how much of a uplift people get from a comic book turned into a movie that was produced by a white man with black characters.
Yeah.
And black folks got mad, like, well, what are you talking about? But it's like, here you are, once again, you have your self-esteem is now uplifted by someone who doesn't even reflect yourself, but did a depiction of you from the outside that's made up.
Yeah.
You're not going to take any flight. I don't care if you take Spirit, JetBlue, or anything. There's not going to be any flight to Wakanda at your local airport.
Yeah.
It's
The
it's it's,
Wakanda
it's
state of
made up,
mind.
right?
Yeah.
But we're like, oh, and you can't even name 10 countries in Africa, but you up here talking about Wakanda forever, right? It's like, brother,
This is true.
like like hopefully this is enough to of a surge to get you, like you said, with that pride, to get you to look deeper into what are the resources within Africa. Come on, keep in mind that when Black Panther came up, the name Black Panther was already um, offensive, and folks didn't want to have it on the shelves. And then
Yeah,
two, the concept of a nation ran by black folks with control over its resources wasn't fitting with the apartheid model that was still in place in a lot of places within Africa.
yeah,
So let's be real, when it was created, that was you could definitely say Stan Lee was not just an ally, but somewhat of an advocate in his creativity in supporting using this mutant stream, this Avengers theme to share some things that were not being vocalized in the mainstream.
yeah. And I definitely that's something that's special about comic books and what makes them so amazing, and why I wish we had more, like over the years, more black creatives putting work out to so it would get to the level of like a Marvel production, but only on our terms. Is the fact that like comic books are able to illustrate the events that happen in the unseen, like with the whole situation with the mutants, and being able to explain how discrimination works to people that aren't necessarily discriminated against. I think that's a lovely tool for helping convey this message of like love all, because how would you feel if the favorite character that you've grown attached to was discriminated against? Like that's a really deep
Mm-hmm.
message, and that's where I felt like like Black Panther has the potential, or had the potential, to really unite the people and get them to think deeper than just like, oh, pro black, we're gonna be together, but think like, okay, yeah, you're right. If they said they blocked off their country because they don't want people to have access to their resources because they know they'll be abused, like maybe there's some truth to that. And we should really look into how are we dealing with that as a people, and not just looking at it from the entertainment value. But I don't think that because of the fact that it's now made it to the mainstream, I don't feel as though it's going to have that same impact. Like I want it to, and that's why I say I have mixed emotions about Wakanda Forever. I want it to be so impactful that the people are like they want to change, but at the end of the day, it's because it's commercial and mainstream. I just don't really see it happening.
Yeah, you have to look at, for instance, what are we creating ourselves where we control the depictions of ourselves. Man, I was playing GTA the other day, right? And
Yeah.
I just had to say, man, what is this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was excited about, you know, the helicopters and, you know, the motorcycles and the addition of some other aspects. But then I turn around and it's like, dang, I'm bumping right into the stereotypes. And I'm like, what in the, you know, this is what we doing? You know,
Yeah.
we got the black gangsters, we got the cholos, we got the big booty black girls, this scantily dressed, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. We this is the best we can come up with,
Yeah. I
you
mean
know?
that's definitely the big, like, when it comes to mass media, and especially when we're talking about video games and stuff, that's somewhere where I really feel that we as a community, because again, we shun the black nerd was never able to garner the support that they needed to get into those spaces to create for us without dealing with pushback. Like games like GTA are so easily digestible to people because of the fact that it just plays into stereotypes, and because it plays into stereotypes, you can measure stereotypes. Like you can
Yeah,
really create like, oh, okay, this game is probably going to sell because of the fact that XYZ stereotype. Like you can read that to go off of, hey, we're going to create an innovative game or experience where we take a black person out of our normal elements that we usually put them in. We're going to try something different. That, like, everybody's like, oh, wait, I don't know if that's going to sell. That's pushing the limits. Like, and then you run into situations like the recent game that just came out, Forspoken.
Mm.
Forspoken is a what you call open world RPG game that features a black female protagonist, right? And so the game just dropped, and everybody was like excited about it because it was open. It was the first like open world RPG that featured African American female protagonist that like she was OP powered up. Like they were like, okay, we about to get into this. Game came out, everybody's like, yeah, no, this game sucks. And here's the funny thing: you when you read into the comments and read into people talking about the game, everybody was saying the mechanics and well, no, it wasn't the mechanics. It was the story and then the build of the world that was lackluster, and then the personality that they gave the character that they hated. And other comments were like, "Oh, so you're saying you didn't like her because she was black?" And it was like, no, no, it has nothing to do with her being black. It has to do with the fact that the quality of the game that this black person in is the issue. And we find ourselves in that situation a lot where they say, oh, well, let's try this out. Let's test out using minority characters in a game or something. But then they put those minority characters in lower quality games. And they say they don't sell because of the minority. And no, they're not selling because of the quality of the game. It's because you haven't really
Mm-hmm.
flushed out a proper story that relates to that character. So people say, oh, black people don't fit here, they don't fit there. And it's not that we don't fit in these spaces, and it's not that we can't. It's there's nobody there to properly tell a story that connects us. Like what you said earlier about the DC like placement of heroes and things like that. That was something I've always noticed was the fact that they kind of just placed those characters there based off a script. Like it was like we're just gonna throw
Mm-hmm.
that in there, like to move the story along. We're not really gonna like say we want more black people here or we want more minority people here in this space. Now we're just gonna put them here so we're diverse while we're doing it. Video games is a whole realm where we can create that, but we don't have the support to do so. And so that actually kind of like moves me into like talking about what I'm currently working on now, if you don't mind. But I'm
Go
building
ahead.
a I'm actually working on a summer camp for children, teaching them about building video games. And the reason why I have them building video games is because of the fact that video games are an intersection between storytelling, music creation, art creation, as well as
Illustration.
STEM. Yeah,
Yeah.
like everything you had to take all of the arts, all of the sciences to put together to create this a game. And so
Because
with
you have to
this, we're going
compel
to be
somebody
giving
to about to get into the game
exactly.
and stick
And
with the
why
game.
we don't have enough minority writers and creators creating games that keep us stuck to these games because we're not attached to these black characters. We're not attached to these other characters because we don't relate to their storyline and they have nobody writing stories for us
Mm-hmm.
to connect with. Yeah, we need more like we need more black creatives involved in it because like if we start telling more stories that connect to us like on a heart level, you find us excelling on an external level. Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel empowered when I see my black superheroes, but like I don't feel as connected to them because I can't relate to everything they deal with because some things are just so stereotypical. So like when I find heroes that I'm able to say like, yeah, I really resonate with you. Like it takes me to another level. It allows me or make it frees me from what I feel like the place I'm in and allows me to ideate on the places I could be. And so with this
Yeah.
game building, that's exactly what we're going to do is bring more black creatives to do that.
Yeah. Definitely keep that as a strong point. Like I shared earlier here in the chat, we have been talking about Black History Month as Black education being at the core of Black History Month, Black STEM, right? And like I share here, 73% of African Americans, 13 and up, all of a sudden are identified as gamers, right? 73% of African Americans. So I don't think everybody's playing Candy Crush. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no, they're definitely not. And see, and then that's a whole other thing we have to get into. Is I'm not a gatekeeper, so to speak, but I am someone who wants to like put facts to facts. They talk about us being gamers. Let's be honest. A good number of our players are playing 2K, Madden, GTA, Call of Duty, and all four of
And
those
Fortnite.
games, yeah, and Fortnite, and all five of these games cater to again back to our stereotypes about being able to run, shoot, and steal. And so it's like we as we are pushing people, or we're being more accepting of people getting into games, I think we need to be more aware of the content ratio, because at the end of the day, everybody always gravitates towards what's familiar to them. So if we're going to say that 72% of gamers are African American, then we now need to look at games and say, what are you putting out for the 73% population that's for this population? Like we're not talking about, oh yeah, we created this, DLC to GTA. Nah. Like how many games are you creating for like the black dungeon divers that like their swords and their
Hmm.
wizards and their magic and things like that? How many like games are you creating? Like as of recent, I'll say this. I actually got excited about this. Games like more Nintendo is doing really good about creating African American features for characters that are like in the RPGs and things. Like if you get the new
Hmm.
Pokemon game, there's a whole array of black hairstyles now that you can get, and that was something that was like, what? Like we didn't have that. Like black kids, as far as gamers, our earliest games that we remember playing are things like Tony Hawk Pro Skate, and that was like the first time we got to actually create a character that would look like us, and that was really
Yeah.
hard to do in a lot of games because they could not, like, with as far as like the polygon system, I think it is, like them creating like the actual color palettes that were able to actually capture the skin tones was a very limited technology back at when millennials were kids. So like
Well,
when they
even
were
beyond
able
the
to
skin tones was the like I remember, street ball, and
okay,
you create your basketball player for one-on-one street ball, and you're like, okay, so we got a jersey, tank tops, and a muscle shirt. Okay, and either the long shorts,
limited,
the basketball shorts, or it's just like, or some cutoffs. It was like, bro, like that original, that original rollout was like, hold up, I know it's called street ball, but people ball in all sorts of gear. Like, don't just limit it to like we're playing in
yeah,
the prison yard or an alley somewhere. It's
yep,
all over the place. So it comes down to, at some point, to control the images, we have to create the images. And
exactly,
if you don't have creative control, like in a lot of other industries, then you are susceptible to whatever other people externally project about who you are.
yeah.
And your
Um,
only other option is not to consume it.
Yeah, and then you end up like out of touch, or you end up like unentertained and things like that. Like as far as like being like in control of our media, that is definitely the biggest thing. Like right now, we're in an age where information is money. Like it's not like it used to be. Information was money. It really is. Like the intellectual property is the name of the game now. Like if you have an idea, if you are creative, like people are taking these things and monetizing them quick. So especially as African Americans, if we want to take control of our culture and hold on to it, we definitely got to push more things like game development and in schools and things like that. Like right now with us doing our game program that we're doing for kids, we're looking into starting a major for game design so that we could get into controlling the narrative about African Americans in these spaces. So we won't be just having people that are industry drones and they're in there pumping out these AAA games for others. We want them to actually work on their own games so they develop their own space in these spaces and they're able to say, "Oh, well, I want to tell my story. My story's flushed out, and you're going to hear it."
Yeah, definitely. So look, man, I know you got to go, but give us one thing you would say to young folks that are looking to get into, you know, STEM careers or further into comic book creation, artistry, any of that. What would you say to guide them into what they might face in society, as far as anything with the racism, anything with the isolation? What would you share with them about as some guiding principle for them to go upon?
Uh, if I'm going off of like even just like how I'm like guiding my life, I tell everybody, think about your life like an anime. Think about your life like a comic book. Like you are your own protagonist, and you have to move your own story along. There's going to be challenges that are going to they're going to set you up, but they're there because they're supposed to move along the story. So like when you face these things, when creatives and artists, like when anybody that wants to get into these fields, whether it's STEM or arts, like think about it as everything is a challenge to tell your story. You can give up if you want to. You can change the story, write a whole new script somewhere else. That's your choice. But just know that the story is always going to come with challenges. And if you want to see how it ends, you have to go through those challenges. Never see them as a problem. Never see them as, oh, me, oh, my, I'm down and out. You look at them as this is another way to develop my character as I move forward. Because you're always going to face adversity, especially if you're a person of color, and if you are a person that's a minority in the space that you're in, and not necessarily being a person of color. It could just be that, like, I'm not used to being on a university campus, but I'm amongst all these doctors and other things like that. So it's like, yes, I'm in my space, but don't shrink. Don't feel like
Yeah.
because this isn't my normal space that, like, I'm no, no, no. Because this isn't my normal space, that means this is a new adventure, a new quest on my RPG comic book life that I live as the hero of my story. Because at the end of the day, you love your heroes because they fought through those challenges, not because they just woke up every day and went to work and went to sleep. So be your hero. Like be your protagonist because it's your life, your comic book.
All right, man. That's good. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining us, Cal, and
Yes,
much
sir. I look forward to
love to
joining back.
you. Yeah, let me know when you're ready to talk about the esports and everything you got going on so we can get back on here. All
Oh,
right.
yeah,
Hey, y'all.
man, yeah. As soon as I get done with this esports tournament today, we got Rocket League tonight. Wish me luck. I'm going to be competing at North Carolina Central University alongside one of the other students from St. Augustine's University. So we about to see what we do. Um, yeah, it's about to be interesting. It's our first
All
tournament.
right. Cool. Hey, we've been talking about Black history, Black superheroes, comic books, gaming, the whole gamut. And thank y'all. Have a great day. God bless.